me from another video. If you're joining me for the first time, hello! Well, in Aliexpress week, a doll which got a lot of interest and discussion on YouTube and off YouTube was my review of the 60 centimeter BJD doll, which is effectively a recast, and thanks to one of my commenters, they gave the recast of what it is. Recast of stolen molds. Please read the description below as to what these are, etc., because they do hurt the ball jointed doll collector community. It is a very elitist community, but just because something is elite doesn't mean that you should be joined in. It's one of those, you know, authentic sayings in the ball jointed doll community. I don't personally care what you buy, you make the choice for yourself each time. Here is a doll which is a recast of an authentic doll. She was $28 New Zealand from memory with free shipping, and you know, my conclusion was, should this be actually advertised as a ball jointed doll? And ball jointed doll effectively just means it has ball joints, which a lot of dolls have ball jointed dolls. I have some antique dolls which are called ball jointed dolls, but this one is advertised with the idea of being deceptive, basically to give the impression that she is an authentic Japanese ball jointed doll. She isn't. She is a recast, a copy, and very, very cheaply made. So you can watch that video before you watch this video if you want to come to your own conclusion. Some people, however, felt that I was being unfair in it, and that the value for money, this is all that some people can afford. I don't necessarily agree with that in all instances. Just because you can't afford authentic ball jointed dolls doesn't mean that you should buy stolen molds. And there are some people who have said they can't afford these dolls, and yet I've seen them buy so many dolls. They could have afforded one of these dolls, you know. And then there's some people that have given these dolls stunning reviews, saying, yes, they're amazing, they're beautiful. They are a pretty doll, but I stand by that I see it as a large articulated Barbie. However, let it not be said that I am someone who is not willing to be proven wrong. So I was told that I needed to buy, there were better dolls on AliExpress in the BJD 60 centimeter range. So I looked for the next step up, this one here, which was advertised for $38, and it's a different body type, more articulation, so it's $10 more expensive than the previous one, and as an elf BJD. And someone pointed it out to me saying, oh, these are so pretty, you really need to check these out before you come to the conclusion, you know, of of completely saying to those. So I brought it. Now when it arrived much as she did, in this black plastic bag. The head was not attached to the body, and let me tell you, the head was absolutely shocking to get on there. I know in these day and ages I'm meant to be saying girl power, woman power, woohoo, and all this sort of stuff, but I was so glad I had a man around to attach this body, this head to this body, because it was very, very hard. Now there are ways of getting around that, you know, heat it up put it in front of a heater for a short period of time, heat it with a hair dryer to make the plastic more malleable and put it on. But honestly, those options aren't open to everybody, and I have no idea what you're meant to do to get this head on if you don't have some muscle there. So the head was wrapped up separately and inside here, just off to the side, and it comes in this air cylinder. So the packaging is nice. The packaging is nice, and some of the issues, you might have seen them on the head there, are not because of the packaging and what's happened in the postage. I can tell you that right now. I double checked when I open things, and I see issues. So the first thing to note about this doll is that, again, her proportions are much thicker than a normal 60 centimeter ball jointed doll. Now, that is not to say that there are lots of different body types out there. All the dolls are going to fall down. I've got my old Wednesday here as the doll I like to use for everything, because she is very loose, very yellowed, and means I don't have to move my other dolls around much. She has high-heeled boots on, so once you take those off Wednesday, you will see that she will come down to pretty much the size this doll is. So if you take those those heels down. So the 60 centimeter BJD is correct. The ball jointed doll, I know that you can say BJD can be used for a range of things, but I'm going on what I consider a ball jointed doll, which is a Japanese art doll. This one here is from China and is recast off an authentic doll. Now, normally when these recasts happen, it means that the cast either goes slightly smaller or slightly larger, and it's definitely the first thing you can see is the difference in the heads. This recast has been blowing up a lot. Now, that's not to say that the previous one didn't have a big bulbous head, but its hair is rooted. Whoop, they're just like headbutting each other. So here they are side by side. So that's not to say this one doesn't have a bulbous head. It is covered in hair to hide that fact. They definitely both have the seam line where the head cap is meant to be. But looking at them side by side this way, I feel like her head is especially big. She reminds me of, if you remember that Mars Attacks movie, and then there's that alien that dresses up as the girl and she has a huge head with a huge wig on to semi-cover it. It reminds me of that. There is a huge head on her. Let's bring her up and I'm going to show you some issues with the head. So ignoring the fact that her head is very big, there is dents in it. So there is a long dent this way. Now some people might say, oh well, that might have happened in the post. I can tell you right now, by the way the head was packaged, it most certainly wasn't from the post. This is something that has happened in the factory and there just isn't a quality check. There is no care. This one here, it looks to me like she's basically been up against something, maybe a piece of machinery which has been heated and it's actually set that in the mold. I don't think putting heat and slowly moving that is going to reset it in any sort of way. This is just something that's happened in the factory. There is a large ding here, again, something that was no way could be associated with the post, the way the head was. I actually looked, because the head was covered in plastic inside the ear thing. If this had been on the head, part of her body, this had been something on the post against her, part of her body would have actually been damaged as well. And part of the reason I say it's no quality check is if you come down to the ear where the spray painting is done, there has been some sort of issue right here and it's not fully covered the ear. There just is no quality checks on these. These are printed out basically like to deceive someone, maybe grandma or someone who thinks, oh, I can't afford a ball jointed doll, so this looks nice. Let's buy this and say I've got a ball jointed doll. It shouldn't be classed in the same thing as the Japanese ball jointed dolls. So we come back to here. The face itself is pleasant. It's a nice face. It is very reminiscent of the dolls. If you go into the Asian variety stores and they have some very cheap alternative dolls, this is very reminiscent of those, where it's basic. There's nothing really to it. There is no, when you get to these sort of dolls, you have a lot of shading, spraying and stuff. There is a lot of depth, a lot of little things that would just take time, and these are about time. These are about getting them out as fast as possible. So let's go down to her body. Now, one of the things with the previous 60 centimeter review was that people felt that I had got a cheaper body and that there were better bodies out there. Now, I'm going to say this. The articulation on this body is far superior. However, the quality plastic is still hollow and still cheap. It isn't anywhere near. I'm tapping the authentic doll here. There is no hollow sound. There is no echo. This definitely has a hollow feel to it. And much like Wednesday, she is not standing upright. But Wednesday used to stand up once upon a time over a decade ago. Wednesday's just had a lot of play. So her articulation, she has this extra point up here for rotation of the arm. She has her elbow here. So you can move her elbow right back. Let's get that in focus, please, camera. And rotation of the wrist as well as the standard back and forward movement. So the movement in this doll is fantastic. She actually has more movement than my authentic doll. So that might just be the cast that she was taken off though. So coming down to here, you can see that she was meant to have the ball jointed doll waist movement. I'll just bring Wednesday up. This movement here, you can see, which is this movement here. So she doesn't have it under her chest area like Wednesday, but this movement here is part of whatever her original cast she was copied off is. Just the ability to basically move her middle section back and forward, and hopefully not squeak Wednesday. Excuse you. So I imagine that's missed just because it would cost a little bit more to put that in. And again, they want to make these fairly cheap so that people will be deceived and buy them, or just think, now I want to be cheap and buy a cheaper doll. That's 100% what this is. She has the leg movement, ninja kicking, knee movement right here. The camera is not liking to focus on her. Knee movement here, and down to the foot movement here, of which you can rotate the forward and move it back and forward. The articulation on her is very, very good. However, the plastic itself is not so good. Now, I pointed out in my previous videos issues with this doll's plastic, and I've been told that this is a superior doll. However, she suffers from exactly the same issues, which I don't think is good to be advertised as a BJD with, because the thing that really upsets me is BJDs have are basically artist work. They have a lot of time and effort by someone who relies on quality and relies on good work, and then you get something like this. And if someone did not know better and purchased something like this, they would think that the body is very meh. The articulation's nice, but there are issues. So let's get to one of the first issues. The joints, you will see, are going to sandpaper down very fast. I don't know if it's going to show on camera, but effectively this is like the articulated Barbie joints where some of them had issues in their knees, etc. This is going to slowly sandpaper down. You can already see the shining on the plastic. I'm not sure if it's shining up on camera, but you can already see where the burrs are eating into it. So with extensive play and posing, slowly this joint is just going to become completely pointless. It is either going to sandpaper down to where it looks very thin, or it's going to sandpaper and make a hole, or it's going to become so loose that it no longer holds its position. As I pointed out in the original video, there are a lot of shine marks on the plastic. There is a heap of shine marks where she has basically rubbed against something. I'm not sure if they're showing up. There's one showing up there, but there are a lot of them. Like, there's a mark there. There's a large shine mark here where something's rubbed against the plastic and it's just made a shine mark. And this is something that can happen in any doll. Now, when these things happen in dolls such as American Girl, you can micro mesh them to fix the doll and get rid of the shine mark. However, in a doll in a ball jointed doll, you 100% would want to get rid of it and fix it. In a doll that costs this much, it's not worth the time and effort to do it. One thing that this doll does have on up on the previous body is her seam lines. Even though it shows right here, her seam lines are far superior to the previous doll. In a lot of places they aren't so obvious, whereas in the previous doll there are a lot of burrs. The seam lines are so incredibly obnoxious on her, but this doll, the seam lines, the joining together has been a lot better. And I don't know whether they've had a fine sand. It actually looks like it might have had a tiny bit of a quality check here, as there is a shine mark on either side of the seam line just to slightly hide the burrs. Not so much up here. You see on the torso they haven't sanded it down, so there is a level there, basically like a teeny tiny microscopic level where they've been joined. I'm going to come up to here where the plastic has been put in. You can see there's been no sanding here either, so you can see there is lumps where the plastic has gone into the mold. So on a proper ball jointed doll, you can see there's no seam line here whatsoever. These are nice proper pieces, and where there would be a seam line, basically it's hidden. It's sanded down, it's hidden, so you cannot see it. And here is what a skull cap is for anyone who's interested. that is what a skull cap is. It allows you the ability to get into a ball jointed doll's head and change the eyes and restring her, etc., which is what this line is. So if you look at the other doll, since it would cost a lot more to make this in 2 pieces and put in magnets, all they've done is they've just gone right over it, and this seam line is where her head should detach, so you can change the eyes. Oh dear. Alright, so other than the obvious head differences, of which, you know, there are different types of dolls, different things. I can't say that any of my ball jointed dolls have such a wide head or such a bulbous headpiece, but there are different dolls out there. Looking at the body, Wednesday's body is actually more natural around the waist area. Now this is just to show, this is probably the mold of the doll where it's pulled slightly in. However, the shoulder areas, this one is quite thick. So the head area up an area here is quite thick. So for the sake of pure interest from me, I brought an outfit which was advertised on one of these dolls, advertised as a BJD 60 centimeter doll, to try on her and then to try on Wednesday, because Wednesday is very much a 60 centimeter authentic BJD, so her proportions, you know, her medium chest and all that sort of stuff, are very much what you would expect. I'm interested to see if they fit nicely. Hello back there. I've had to move the camera way back this way to fit her in because these are big dolls. The dress fits beautifully. The dress actually makes her, hides a lot of the issues with her body obviously, and makes her look a lot prettier than what she is unclothed, in my opinion. There is no real issue with the clothing. That part there is just because I've shoved it on her, so it fits together nicely, it flows nicely. The clothing I'm very, very impressed with. And I've said this in other videos. Aliexpress doll clothing I've been very impressed with. The only issue with some of the clothing is it's very, very see-through. The material used is very cheap, very sheer. But I have not had any real issue with the clothing as in holes or unsightly seams or anything like this. So the dress itself, I think the dress only cost me like $6 or $7 with free shipping. It was absolutely amazing. I'm very happy with the dress. I'm happy with the doll and the dress. It fits great. It was advertised as advertised, basically. So the dress itself looks okay, but it definitely has been made for the proportions of these recast dolls. The top area, the chest area just does not fit nicely. I'll bring it up close and we can have a look. The sizing on the skirt is actually really nice. Wednesday is in high heel boots, so it would be slightly another ½ inch down if she wasn't in these boots, so it wouldn't flow right on the floor, but it would flow just above it, which is perfect. Yeah, these are definitely not made for authentic 60 centimeter dolls. I'll bring it up. So Wednesday, the first noticeable thing of having it on her is her headlights. It's so pulled, so tight round here, which is really interesting considering the other doll's shoulders are more thick, but you saw that the waist was a lot thicker. It really pulls around here, and if you go to the arm here, because the arms are more thick and out, kind of like a square box really, more on an angle this way, we have this part here. And it's all pulled here as well. So you can see it's an awkward fit on her, but this is not to say that it wouldn't fit on another ball jointed doll with possibly a more, what would you call it, a more man shoulder, a more manly shoulder, and a thinner waist wouldn't fit her. She isn't a large bust doll from memory, she's only a medium bust, so if you've got a large bust doll, this dress is not going to fit on her whatsoever. Coming down to here, from here onwards though, this doll has a thinner, very thin waist here, but if you see here, it fits her waist perfectly. So the thin one, it was almost a bit too big for there, but it fits here, so it's weird. It's like on this doll, it fits Wednesday better here than the other doll, but up here, it definitely fits the other doll better. The dress itself is gorgeous. $6 or $7, I consider this a good buy. it really would just take me undoing the seam and doing a bit of a fix here if I was that strange about it, but I don't really mind that much. And it also came with a little tie which you can use to tie it in, and I imagine this tie came with it because it was to tie in to this fake doll's smaller waist. Wednesday certainly doesn't need that. So while Wednesday's here, I've got her usual headpiece, very old again. Like I said, Wednesday's about 10 years old, so you have to forgive her. She is my doll I use for everything. If I go out and need to take my doll out, she's the one I choose. It just basically means the other dolls don't have to see daylight that often. I do play with them all, but some of them you like to keep, you know, authentic. So this is a standard SD 60 centimeter ball jointed doll cap. Now I have used this wig on other SD dolls. It's always fitted, it's always been fine. I don't think this is going to work in the case of the other doll. Let's try it out. So okay, let's try it on her. I'm pretty sure I can say safely that it is not going to fit. Now there are possibly SD 60 centimeter dolls with large bulbous heads like this out there. I personally don't have one, and I can say I haven't seen one, and I've seen a few people's collections, so yeah, I think you're gonna have to buy a bigger cap. This is the standard size. Oh my goodness, no, there's just no way. There is no grip for the cap either because there's that big dent in her head, so there's nothing for her. Yeah, this is the funny thing is though, because the other doll came rooted, if she came rooted she would be far prettier. Look how if you found a cap to fit her, she would still be a pretty doll. You can see that she's going to be a pretty doll with hair on, but she should not be advertised, in my opinion, as a 60 centimeter ball jointed doll. She should be basically advertised as a large articulated doll, because that's what the BJD is meant to deceive. I'm sorry, I know that there are ball jointed dolls out there of all varying shapes and sizes and makes. I have a lot of, you know, the antique ball jointed dolls and stuff. But this to me is done purely to deceive, and that's why it's sad. Okay, so I did it. Some of you felt that there was a better body out there, that I got a particularly bad one with the previous doll. I went and brought the next step up, which is this one here. Has my opinion changed? Should she be considered a BJD? My answer is absolutely not. I still consider them articulated Barbie dolls, oversized Barbie dolls basically. The quality is nowhere near what I consider a Japanese ball jointed doll. They're large, they're in width rather than size. The sizing is fine. There are issues which just shouldn't be associated with the craft. And yes, the collecting of BJDs is rather elitist, but there is a reason it is rather elitist. These dolls are basically works of art. These are stolen casts meant to deceive for monetary gain. Not even a much monetary gain. Okay, so I've just been asked off camera, would I advise buying them? Because there has been a number of reviews that we've seen, people saying, oh, they're beautiful, they're amazing, oh, this was only $28 for this large doll. For a large playline doll, for $38, that's about a Barbie and a play set. Yeah, I personally would rather pay $26 and get this one here. She comes with her hair rooted in already. Her face is actually somewhat nicer in that her eyes are less smoky than in this doll. Her face overall is much nicer. I prefer the skin tone of her. Paying $10 for the extra articulation, I actually don't consider an upgrade. I actually think this doll is much nicer. I would advise this one. But again, as long as you're going to be realistic with what they are cheaply made, stolen casts that are meant to deceive. Don't consider yourself a BJD collector if you can collect these. A BJD collector, I consider someone who looks for these dolls. It is just unfair to the artists that spend their time, their money, and get ripped off by these people. It is a slap in the face to them. Read the description. Let me know your comments below. Look, never let it be said that I don't try something twice. I wasn't impressed. My opinion hasn't changed of these dolls. May I buy some more? Maybe, if I want to have a play date, or I want to give a child a particularly articulated doll that is large, that I know will be destroyed if they're a destructive child. But would I endorse buying them? I think you should save your money and save up for one of these and be truly impressed. If you love AliExpress doll reviews that are honest, please don't shoot me for being honest. It's not a real review if it's blowing sunshine all over the place. Give this video a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below if you think that I'm still being unkind to these dolls, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.